My name is Emily Carter, and this happened in 2019 when I was 22 years old. I had recently graduated from college and was living alone for the first time in a quiet neighborhood in Portland, Oregon. The apartment building wasn't very old, but it wasn't brand new either. It was the kind of place where you occasionally heard strange sounds at night, pipes rattling, neighbors walking upstairs, or the elevator suddenly moving when nobody seemed to be using it. At first, living alone felt strange, but after a few months I got used to it. One Friday evening, it was raining outside. I had just gotten home from work and planned to spend the entire night indoors. The weather was miserable, so I made some food, settled onto the couch, and started watching a TV series. Around 8 p.m., I received an email. It was from the apartment management company. The message read, "Routine building inspections will take place tomorrow morning. If there are any plumbing or electrical concerns, maintenance staff may knock on your door." I read it, thought nothing of it, and went back to my evening. Around 11 p.m., I went to bed. At approximately 1:30 in the morning, I suddenly woke up. At first, I wasn't sure why. The room was completely dark. For a few seconds, I just lay there, confused. Then I heard it. Tap. Silence. A few seconds later, tap. The sound was so faint that I assumed it was coming from another apartment. I rolled over and tried to fall back asleep. Then it happened again. Tap. Tap. This time I knew the sound was somewhere inside my apartment. My heart immediately started beating faster. I sat up in bed and listened. Nothing. Just silence. Then tap. It sounded like metal lightly touching metal. The noise seemed to be coming from the kitchen. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. Slowly, I opened my bedroom door. The apartment was completely dark. I aimed the light toward the kitchen. Nothing. Meothing? Everything looked normal. I checked the bathroom, the living room, the closets, every corner I could think of. The apartment appeared empty. Eventually, I convinced myself that it was probably just a pipe making noise. I returned to bed. This time, however, I left my bedroom door open. About 10 minutes later, tap, I froze. There it was again. Now I was certain. The sound wasn't coming from the pipes, and it wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from somewhere inside my apartment. I looked at my phone. 1:47 a.m. Then suddenly a notification appeared on the screen. It was from the apartment complex's community app. One of the residents had posted, "Has anyone else seen someone walking around the building tonight?" A chill ran through me. I opened the post. Underneath, it was another comment. I saw a man on the 3rd floor wearing a maintenance uniform, but he didn't have an ID badge. My stomach dropped. The real maintenance workers in our building always wore visible ID badges. Always. I kept reading. Another resident had commented only a few minutes earlier, "I think he's still inside the building." At that point, one was fully awake. I immediately walked over and checked my front door. Locked. Security chain attached. Everything was secure. Then, tap. The sound came again. Louder this time. So loud that I nearly jumped. And suddenly I realized something. The noise wasn't coming from the kitchen. It wasn't coming from the front door. It was coming from the small storage room inside my apartment. The room was tiny. I used it for old boxes, luggage, and random things I rarely touched. The door stayed closed almost all the time. Slowly, I turned my head toward it. The storage room door sat at the end of the hallway, dark, silent. Then I saw something that made my blood run cold. A shadow moved beneath the narrow gap at the bottom of the door, just for a second, as if someone was standing on the other side. I couldn't breathe, because I hadn't gone into that storage room for 2 days. And then I remembered something even worse. When I had searched the apartment earlier, I never opened that door. The maintenance request. I stood frozen in the hallway, staring at the storage room door. For several seconds, nothing moved. Nothing made a sound. I tried convincing myself that I had imagined the shadow. Maybe it was the light from my phone. Maybe it was my eyes playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew what I had seen. Someone or something had moved behind that door. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I slowly backed away. Every instinct was telling me not to go near that storage room. Instead, I retreated into my bedroom and quietly locked the door. Then I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. The dispatcher answered immediately. I explained everything. The strange sounds, the community posts, the man wearing the maintenance uniform, the moving shadow under the storage room door. The dispatcher asked if I could safely leave the apartment. I told her no. The only exit was the front door, and to reach it I would have to walk directly past the storage room. She instructed me to stay in the bedroom, keep the door locked, and remain on the line. Police officers were already on their way. The next few minutes felt like hours. Every little noise made me jump. The apartment had become completely silent. No tapping, no footsteps, nothing. Then suddenly, creak. I heard a door opening. My stomach dropped. It wasn't my bedroom door. It was the storage room door. The sound came from somewhere in the hallway. Slow, deliberate. The dispatcher heard it too. "What was that?" she asked. I could barely speak. "The storage room," I whispered. "Oh my God." Then I heard footsteps. Very slow footsteps, moving across my apartment. Whoever was there had finally come out. I covered my mouth with my hand to stop myself from breathing too loudly. The footsteps moved through the living room, then the kitchen, then stopped. For a moment, everything became silent again. The dispatcher kept talking calmly, trying to keep me focused. The officers were only minutes away. Then something happened that terrified me more than anything else. A voice, a man's voice, very close, very calm, very quiet, from outside my bedroom door. "I know you're in there." I felt every hair on my body stand up. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. The dispatcher immediately told me not to respond, so I stayed silent. A few seconds passed. Maintenance. The word sent chills through me, because now I knew exactly what had happened. The email, the maintenance uniform. This wasn't a coincidence. Maybe residents had seen him and assumed he belonged there. Maybe that's how he got into the building. Once, twice, 3 times, the man was trying the handle. Thankfully, it was locked. I nearly screamed. The dispatcher told me officers were arriving outside. Then I heard the man move away from the door, fast. A few seconds later, the sound of police sirens echoed outside. Loud voices, running footsteps, a door slamming somewhere in the building. Everything happened so quickly. After what felt like forever, there was a knock on my bedroom door. This time it was the police. I opened it and immediately burst into tears. What they found shocked everyone. The storage room wasn't empty. Behind several large cardboard boxes was a the panel had been removed. According to police, the intruder had likely entered through those maintenance passages. But that wasn't the worst part. One officer came over holding something in an evidence bag. It was a notebook, the one I kept on my desk. I looked through it and felt sick. Several pages had been torn out. Inside were handwritten notes about me, the times I usually left the apartment, even details about what I wore on certain days. Someone had been watching me for a long time. The police searched the building throughout the night, but the man escaped before they could catch him. Security footage later showed him leaving through a side exit seconds before officers entered the building. To this day, they never identified him. I moved out 2 weeks later. The storage room was eventually sealed off by management. But even now, years later, I still think about one thing. If I hadn't seen that shadow, if I hadn't called 911, I probably would have opened that storage room door myself. And I don't want to imagine what would have happened if I had.